Go ahead, Roger. How you like that reception from our top 300 leaders who make Cox Automotive what it is?
Well, thank you. I need you at the racetrack to help me root us on. But
I have news for you. You don't need any help.
Well, Sandy, a real honor for me to be here today, and to see that video that Brokaw did brings back so many memories, and just amazing to think about what that's meant to our team and our family and our partners.
So this is really tough for me because I don't know if you know this, but I started out my career many years ago as a journalist. So everyone here, we do this with different people, and everyone here is expecting me to really start the 60 Minutes interview. And I have to start this by telling you this is not what a former journalist does, and I mean this sincerely. You are one of my heroes. You really are one of my personal heroes, and you heard that in the hallway from a few other people who got to meet you and say that. And to be able to take a company and celebrate 50 years and do the things you've done, and that's what we want to talk about, is really remarkable. So first of all, on behalf of all of us, thank you for being a great partner to Cox Automotive, both on the automotive side, in dealerships, and also in NASCAR. We really treasure our partnership with you, Roger.
Well, we build our company on partnerships, and I think that as I talk to our people, it's both on and off the track. It's relationships with people like Cox and certainly, the other parts of your business that make a big difference. So, I'm glad to be here, and hope we can have some fun today.
Absolutely. So, the first question, it's fairly obvious. Being a driver and having, all of the training and everything that you had done on the track, and then making a decision for your family and for your business to concentrate on business, what lessons did you take out of being a driver, being disciplined, to the boardroom and to your business and building it?
Well, when I think about racing, it's taught me, many things. And at the end of the day, when you look at our business, the common thread, through our brand is performance. And, it's about teamwork, it's about integrity, it's about execution. And it's also about having to be a good loser. And you think about it, we saw in that video here earlier the 1994 win when Al Unser, I think we led every lap but two, sat on the pole and won the race. And when I think about it, the next year we came to Indianapolis, Sandy, we didn't make the race. Emerson Fittipaldi on one side and Al Unser on the other. And you can imagine walking down the pit lane after qualifying over the 100,000 people there, and you lost. And I think that made me stronger, made our drivers stronger. In fact, when we came back in 2001, we won it 3 years in a row. So I think those are some of the lessons. And I'll tell you a cute story. I had a chance to, I'm not a great golfer, but I had a chance to play with Jordan Spieth in the Houston Pro-Am here about, 3 or 4 weeks ago. And of course, following him in the Masters in the great first 3 days, and he gets down to the last 9 holes. And of course, he unfortunately, didn't complete the day. I sent him a letter, and I said, Jordan, you're a great young man. You've got a great future. And I can't tell you how much I followed you, over the last 3 or 4 days, but I want to tell you an experience I had. And I related my experience about walking down the pit lane, with the two drivers arm in arm, and we didn't win. And I said, you're going to be a better guy. So it's interesting how racing kind of gets into your blood. And I think when I look at it in our business, it's about execution. It's about building a team. And I think that's what's, from the very first day I drove the car, I drove the truck, I worked on the car, and I think that's still what I'm doing today. That's the problem.
Well, so I have to ask you a question about that. So Joey Logano is just a phenomenal young man, phenomenal partner. He told me a great story. I said to him, so does Roger ever give you some advice? And he broke out into this big grin, and he said, after I started driving for Roger, I'm in this race, and I'm getting down to like the last 25 laps, and all of a sudden this booming voice comes over my headphones, and he's telling me, tighter, tighter, and I'm thinking, holy moly, that's Roger. What's he doing on the headphone telling me? He says, I didn't know what to do. So the question about that is, running a company the way you do, how do you know when to dig low and when to go down and get into the details, and when to let the folks who work for you do that themselves?
Well, I think details are important. That the people in this room know it's the connection. And to me, I don't run my business from a bunch of PowerPoints in the boardroom. I run my business at the ground level, and I think that makes a difference. And when I'm at the races, I go to the spotter stand, I'm watching, and I can give the guys some probably some good advice, maybe some bad advice. But I think that as an entrepreneur or as a business person, you've got to be involved, and you've got to know your business. I think you lead from the top, from the middle, and from the bottom. I don't think there's any specific formula that makes you more successful. But to me, it's that human capital. It's that people that you surround yourself with that make a difference. And I want Joey and Brad. They didn't buy their ride. We hired them. They're
Right.
independent contractors. What we have to do is supply them, with the very best equipment, as we do in our dealerships. We have to provide our customers an environment. It's inviting, it's quality, and it's responsive. And I think that's the things that we've learned to make it happen when we get off the racetrack.
How much time do you spend reading, understanding the details, knowing, I know the answer to this question, and knowing the stats of all of your businesses?
Well, when you start at the bottom and you don't have much and you're trying to figure out where you're going, you keep a pretty good idea on your bank account. So I guess with the tools, some of your tools, by the way, gives us a chance to, to see, what's going on. We have daily operating controls. And I look at every store every day. I can see grosses. I can see new and used car sales. And to me, that's important because I pick up the phone. We have a very flat organization. I said, don't worry if I call someone in your organization, that's what we're going to do. And I want people to call me because we've learned, really, I think I learned it in the racing. The guy driving the truck is just as important as Logano. If the truck doesn't get there, we don't have a race car. So to me, it's the guy that's detailing that car in the back. You got to go back and put your hand in his to say, hey, you're part of this team. So I'm in the details, and I also am interested in the daily operating controls of all of our businesses. And I guess numbers are something I come by, and I like to look at them. Maybe I read more numbers than I do books. I hate to admit that to this group here. So maybe that's one of my faults.
Well, the reason that I said I knew the answer to the question is recently for all of you, John Dyer and I were at Charlotte, and Roger was in his trailer, and he was kind enough to give us some time, and John and I went in there and had a wonderful conversation with Roger, and we walked out. John looked at me and said, I'm sure glad there were two of us and one of him because I couldn't keep up.
Well, I appreciate that.
So Roger, in our room here are 300, more than 300 of our top leaders. These are the people who make Cox Automotive happen, and we're in a great transition. The title of our conference here is Momentum. We're talking about seizing the moment. You also know we've made acquisitions, we've built some companies. You've done a lot of that during your career. What advice would you give leaders knowing that type of change and trying to build teams while we're doing that?
Well, number one, I think change is good. I think you need that, and I take my hat off, Sandy, to you and John, for the commitment and the investment, in our business. But overall, I think that when you make a commitment in your business, like you have, I think you've got to look at people. And I say every time that we have a spill, it's because a person hasn't really done his job. And I go back and someone said, where do you spend a lot of your time? I'm spending more and more time in the human resource part of our business to be sure that we get quality people in, and if we have issues, we understand why. So I'm looking today at the human resource aspects of our business. Typically, we have at least 2 people for every 250 people because we have these big organizations centrally, but nobody can contact them. And we need to have that day-to-day because when someone has an issue, we need to deal with it. And I'll give you an example. In 1988, we bought Detroit Diesel from General Motors, and they had lost $600 million for the last 3 or 4 years before that, and we were a distributor in New York and had the opportunity to put a deal together with them. And I walked in the door on the first day, we had 3,000 grievances.
Wow.
3,000, we had about 3,000 people on the shop floor. So, this is, and you wonder why they were losing money, but there was no connection. With senior management and the people. And the first thing I did, I got a hold of the head of the union. I said, let's meet. And I told him, eyeball like we are today, I said, look, we're not going to do this in the newspaper. We're going to do it together. We're going to get the shop committee together. And every Friday we're going to meet and we're going to work on these grievances. It was ironic. In 3 months, we were down to 100. And after that, we took a company that we had $150 million worth of equity. Cummins had $5 billion, and Caterpillar had $25 billion. And we went from 3% market share to 30%. just because we pulled a team together. So I think it's building that team, it's putting your arm around your people, and operating at the same level. I think that whether it's your dealer partner, and you have two customers, remember.
Yeah.
It's the one inside that works next to you every day, isn't it? And it's the one outside, because if the inside customer's not happy, guess what? You're not going to do a good job outside with your outside customers. So I think it's people. Obviously capital is important to have that. But I see in your business with the aggregation, and as we look at Auto Trader and we look at the tools that you have, aggregate those. Go into the dealerships and take this. You got a menu there that's so powerful in comparison to the competition. Take that. I think it's been amazing what you've been able to do. But I would caution you in one way. You look at AutoNation, you look at ourselves and the other publics. There's 18,000 dealership franchises here in the U.S. roughly, and it's about 7 or 8% is consolidated. So you're really dealing, I hate to say mom and pop, but individual operators. So they don't have the bandwidth that we might have, or the people to accept some. So you really have to play that role with them. So I think getting closer to your customer, having complete transparency, I think is key. And to me, you're going to help that person make money and have a better business and better connection with his customers. And if you do that, you're going to be successful. It's you as an individual against that person you're sitting with. And I think it's simple. This isn't hard. Shake his hand. I mean, go out there and know what's going on in his business, not just coming in, I got this to sell you. And I can tell you, when I go to a store, and Mike Maroney knows this, I'm sure he was the same way. We don't just go in the boardroom. We go out and walk through the shop. And the first thing I do, where's the warranty parts bin? That's a good idea. These guys even know what warranty parts is in some of these stores. So you want to get down in the detail, because all of a sudden, people say, maybe he knows what's going on.
How do you know when you have found the qualities in a leader that you want, and they're going to be a leader that's going to be highly successful in your organization?
Well, if you look at our company, all of our companies, most of them we built people from within. And it's amazing when you see companies with 200,000 people, they have to go outside for their leadership. And I'm sure in this room today, future leaders are here to run this business on a longer term basis. We want to build them from in. I say it's better to know the devil than not sometimes when you bring these people up. So anyhow, we promote from within. And we don't have to be the smartest guy in town either. We look at effort. Certainly effort equals results. We see that. People that put time in, people that can concentrate. And also one thing, the most important thing I say is can you do a transaction? Are you transactional? Think about it. They don't teach you that in school, do they? And that's something that's so important, finding transactional people that want to be in the business. And today in the auto business, I think it's tougher because unemployment is down right around 5% here in the U.S. To get people to come into our business, and it's changed. It's more professional. You're making it more professional, with the tools that you have. So I think internal promotions, letting people grow, giving them bandwidth. And another thing that we do, and I think it's important, and just think about this. We don't have an environment where nobody fails. Think about that. We don't have an environment where nobody fails. And I was on the GE board for 20 years. I learned that from Jack Welch. And what does Jack say? He takes that bottom 10% out. So whether it's a bad business, we sell it if we can't fix it. And if we got people that aren't getting the job done, we've got to professionally move them on. And I think that's going to be important if you're going to be a leader long term.
We talked yesterday about more frequent conversations. One of my sayings is open, honest, direct all the time. I mean, it's an ongoing thing. It's not at the end of the year you sit someone down and talk to them. It's every day measuring and talking to folks.
Well, I think that's a good point. It's interesting how in the car business, and we're all in that business, aren't we?
We are.
We have a sales meeting sometimes every day, or we have one every week, but how many times do we talk to the technicians or the service writers? And we've mandated in our business once a month, not around the Coke machine, but up in the conference room. We get our technicians, our service writers, and our parts people. We talk about the business. We talk about what's going on globally with our company. And then we also talk about CSI. And it's interesting how as you get that part of our business connected, it makes a big difference. And so what we've tried to do is over-communicate. And I think I learned that at Detroit Diesel as we tried to communicate with that hourly workforce because people want to know what's going on. And it's amazing. if they do, how they'll pull together as a better team.
I think everyone in this room would tell you, and I certainly do at the top, that working for a family company is a huge advantage and a wonderful blessing, so to speak. Having a family company, has that been difficult for 50 years to drive a company this big, regardless of being a public company? You're still a family-led company.
Well, to put that in perspective, we have our holding company is Penske Corporation, and then we have majority ownership in the auto business, which is Penske Auto Group. And then we have the joint venture we've had with GE for so many years in truck leasing, which is really private. And there's two different dynamics because we have our quarterly earnings. We had them yesterday. We had a good quarter, which I like. But interesting, I have my quarterly earnings every weekend on the racetrack, so I'm used to quarterly earnings. So either win or you lose. So it's interesting. But I would say, there's good things and there's bad things because remember, you are building a brand name. It's a brand over 50 years for us, and we got to build it. It's easy to tear it down. And I think that's one of the things that's very important, as a leader in the family to run that business. But I think more important, we can make decisions faster. And most of the time, and I would say most of the time, it's long-term commitments. Certainly when I look at the commitment that Cox has made in our businesses, they're long-term commitments. It's not for short-term returns. And I think that's very important. But it also, from a turnover perspective, I've seen that we have less turnover in our company because we run it as a private company. And just because we have a contract doesn't make any difference. We want to reach out. And to me, when I see Cox and the things they do in the communities, the philanthropy, I think you'll see a lot of private companies reach out and give back. And I think that's one of the important things that we've tried to do as we're involved in the city of Detroit.
Well, the things that you've done in the city of Detroit are just amazing. I mean, this is a city that fell on such hard times and now has rebounded, and you and your company have been right in the middle of that. We do believe in giving back to the communities, and your example is just amazing, really, in Detroit. It's a great American city, and it's coming back. So, the dealership business, give us some insights. What do you see happening in the next few years, the changes, the dynamics inside the dealership?
Well, a lot's happening. I mean, you can see we've gone from 10 million SAR to 17. So in our country, it's been a big move for us, and certainly the industry. The advent of the public companies back with AutoNation, when they thought that this was not going to be a good thing. I think what I've seen this being very positive because the manufacturers are coming to us, they're offering us opportunities, and we're able to invest. Now, with that, we've invested over $2 billion just in CapEx in facilities. Yeah. And that concerns me because today, with the internet, and one of the things that I've said it before is, we got the concern that the OEM is going to go direct to our customer. Now, when I look at Europe, they're already doing that. I'm not sure other parts of the world some of you represent, but we have franchise laws here which probably give us a little bit of cover. But I see that concern coming at us from the standpoint of on a going forward basis. The requirements of the talent in your store, in your dealership, not just the education experience, to be able to use the tools, it's much more professional. With product geniuses and people like that, where they come in and they're not selling you, they're talking about the vehicles. And I think you have three different customers today. As I step back and I tell our people, we got the traditional. It's like your barber. You go to the same guy, you rely on him, or the woman goes to a hairdresser. You got that same person. When you come in, old Joe sold me a car every year for the last 10 times. I go and see him. That's your traditional. But then you got the hybrid customer, and he's the one that's on the internet. He knows the cars. He knows what he wants. He's probably selected. He's done some work on it. And he comes in, and can you handle him? Because your salespeople are not probably educated enough on what he wants. Maybe more the customer has the upper hand there, so you got to deal with him. And then you've got the millennial, don't you?
Sure.
What's he worried about? Social media, Yelp, Google reviews, before he goes to a restaurant, before he does things. So we have to deal with that customer who not only wants to know how you're doing in the face of the public and maybe his constituency, but also he has to understand through the internet. So we have to deal with these customers. That's going to make a difference. And then I think it's being proven today that our business is solid because look at these recalls. And as the key and GM, the diesel situation at Audi and Volkswagen, that proves that this parts and service business, the downstream partner, which we are, is so important on a going forward basis. And I think that's going to give us, that's our foundation. And that's what's going to take us through the ups and downs of cycles. And when I look at our business today, and you might think about this, that 42% of our gross profit is generated through parts and service.
Right.
And you look at the heavy truck side, it's 72%. So I think that parts and service piece is going to be really, it's the foundation. Now, on top of that, you know, we have to understand the tools. I think your vAuto has been a great tool for us on the used car side. When you certainly, as we look at Auto Trader for our leads, we're going to have to just do a better job. And as I look at leasing, it's interesting how Toyota just announced and Lexus announced we're going to use used car leasing.
Right.
And this is probably, it's good for us. We've been doing it anyhow, maybe under the covers, with BMW, because as we sell these young used cars, we can lease them. We take them out of our rental fleet, we take them out of our loaner fleets, and we can lease those at the current rates. So I see leasing continuing to grow. I see a lot of new products. But what's happening in the business is we're in this low fuel price, and you look at the mix, now we've gone to almost 60% trucks and SUVs. And if the fuel price went to $4, I think that would move the other way. But what's happening is, I read this morning in the Wall Street Journal that what's Chrysler doing, shifting all their plants, to trucks and Jeeps. So we're going to see this continued movement back and forth from the standpoint of technology. But on the other hand, I think at 2025, at 50 miles per gallon or 54 miles per gallon, you're going to see electric vehicles. And I think that's really, we're going to see those as part of our everyday business. So again, we're going to see how that's going to really fit with our business, because today I think we're looking at low cost of ownership, and today EV is not that. So
Right.
We'll wait and see.
Well, you mentioned fixed ops, which is an area for us that we're really, really interested in.
X-Time, huh?
Yeah, X-Time, and we've launched a new product called Spectrum with our merger with DealerTrack. Also, you made Dale Pollock smile when you mentioned vAuto. Dale came out with a new product this year at NADA called Stockwave, and we hear that.
I can't keep up with all these. I need a little cheat sheet here so I can keep up with.
You say
Don't
that.
get too complicated.
I'm not.
We're dealers now. Don't get too complicated bringing all this stuff in.
You say that, but you really can keep up, which I know.
I don't know about that.
So you mentioned the OEMs. Do you feel like the relationship between OEMs and dealers, is there going to be more of a struggle, less of a struggle? Is it going to stay the same? I mean, there's always a little tension, right?
I think that two things are happening. We talked about family companies and no turnover. It seems to me these OEMs are turning on. Everybody, new marketing guy comes in, has a new idea. That's one thing that you got to deal with. You do too. But I think there's more tension today. And unfortunately, a lot of it's been around the CI, the corporate identity,
Right.
and the CapEx. And I hear it more and more, not just at one manufacturer, but at another one from our peers. I've told that to, in fact, talking to Ian Robertson at BMW here in the last couple of weeks. I said, Ian, all we do is talk about facilities instead of talking about how we can sell more cars. And I think that there's got to be a change there. But more important is the internet has become such a good tool to connect with a customer. And we're having probably a little bit of a fight in the center of the intersection. Who owns that customer, right?
Absolutely.
Is it the OEM or is it the downstream partner, the dealer? And I think that's going to be the thing that's going to continue to move back and forth. And then the ability to take our data and share it properly. And again, when we think about confidence of our customer data, we have to look at that. So I see the OEM really invading our privacy with our customer, which concerns me, to be honest with you.
Sure.
And the expectations, on facilities is key. And do we end up should we just have a big warehouse someplace with a bunch of cars and be savvy on the internet? We probably sell as many cars. And to me, I think there's going to be a change here, and I think we're going to have to look at that, because we can't afford, Fifth Avenue and 42nd Street real estate, for our brands everywhere in the country. And I think I'm seeing in the international markets a much more relaxed process as far as facilities are concerned, and hopefully we'll have that over here. But I think we're a little bit concerned. The good news is we have franchise laws, and after the bankruptcy, they're much stronger. So I think we're on a much better ground from the standpoint of them taking them away. Now, we do have one thing that that maybe some of you haven't caught up with. You know, how do you take a dealership out now? How do they take us out? Fraud, obviously, or things like that, you go. But they have this word now, sales efficiency. And I don't know if you've heard much about that, but that seems to be the key target, the metric that all the manufacturers are starting to look at. What's your sales efficiency? So I think you'll hear more about that, and I'm seeing it more and more with the different manufacturers. So we'll stand by and see. I wonder how they can continue to grow at the levels they expect us to grow in our individual markets. So I think there's a little noise there.
I was in a dealership in St. Louis not long ago, and it's a small family group, and they're getting pressed by one of the manufacturers who's saying exactly that, sales efficiency. Yet, you know, they have a little bit of a different model. They've invested money in their business, and they're successful. And so, you know, beauty's in the eyes of the beholder there, right, in terms of how the manufacturer leans on them and what they do.
Well, that's the thing. What I've tried to do in each one of our stores, I take probably a 50-mile radius of each store, and I look at the competing interbrand competitors, and that's 100%. What I do every month, I look at every one of our stores. Did we gain or lose with our competitors? Because that gives us some idea how, if we're competitive and what's the market share. And I use that as a pretty good guide every month. And it's a very interesting report. You look at the year to date, you look at last year, and you can see where you are. And I think it makes a difference because you help motivate your guys that way.
Your guys are very motivated that way. Rob Koenig talks to me about that all the time.
Good.
In terms of market share. So we know this business is cyclical. I mean, we're at a great spot right now. Are dealers getting ready for, at some point, when the cycle comes down some?
Well, let me give you a couple of indicators that I see, and probably, you know, in our truck business is an early indicator. You know, we saw inventories go up substantially, you know, over the last 12 to 18 months. And our rental truck business was off the charts because people needed extra trucks. We've seen that come back. We've actually defleeted about 1,500 tractors here, you know, in the last probably 6 months. And freight's down, it was up 2%, you know, this in the month of March. So I see a little bit slowing in the economy, yet construction's up. Retail is down, and of course, energy-related sectors around the country are under some pressure. But what's happened, and I look at 2008 and 2009, we had one quarter that we lost money in at PAG, and I think AutoNation and the rest of the peers were probably in the same position. We're able to manage through it because of our parts and service business. And with the downstream partner being the parts and service expert, and with that being 40% of our gross profit, I think we have a pretty good base. But today, the captive finance companies are a lot stronger than they were in 08 and 09. Right. We're pretty much vertical. We don't have a bank in our financing in the U.S., if you can believe that. We're using the OEM captive. So we think if it's raining, it's going to rain on the captive and rain on us, we'll probably get a better handshake. But I think we're much better prepared to deal with it. You know, we took our dividend down. Right. We reduced people. We sold off dealerships that were not profitable, and we're prepared to do that again. And I think that it's almost like a portfolio we have. And I think at least from the public peers, you're seeing that kind of action all the time, and we'll see some sales too. I think that'd be a good time to buy if this thing softens a little bit. Right now, the prices on dealerships, I think, are probably a little bit higher. We might have our pencil down on the table right now, but I think we can handle it, and hopefully it won't be at the depth it was in 8 and 9 if we do have it. But I think there's a 17 million. I think it'll be a great market. And what's going to happen, Sandy? Lots of competition within the OEMs. If you look at the last quarter, the big three incentives were up $800. Ironically, when you look at the volume foreign and you look at the Europeans, they're only up $100. So there's no question they've gotten share, but I think it's been at the cost of some higher incentives. So we'll see what happens.
So you talk a lot about, all of your people do, you talk a lot about being client and customer centric. One of the things we feel it's our responsibility to do if we're going to be successful partners with you is to try to help you with that, to try to cut down the time in the dealership, do a lot of different things that help you. In your mind, what does that mean, customer centric today, when, as you said earlier, you have to slice and dice the customers in so many different ways? You can't be all things to all people, right?
Well, that's a hard word for me, customer centric. I think that customer focus maybe is a better word for me. And I think that we certainly have metrics, from a net promoter score, CSI, customer satisfaction indexes. I know you have them, I'm sure. Yep. And we don't pay extra in our dealerships because you have good CSI. If you don't have good CSI, you follow me, we dock you, and I think that's important. But we're looking at every single person in that dealership. We're training to have a partner and have a customer connection. And I think it was interesting. We talked about Detroit Diesel. What I did when I was there, I took the top 12 executives and I said, you have to call 2 customers every week. Wow. Think about that. Here's Detroit Diesel. These guys are up at the top. They never talked to a customer. They didn't talk to guys in the shop. You could tell that with 3,000 grievances. I said, what you have to do is call customers. And I think that's what we have to stay connected. And interesting, I guess I have to thank my dad for this. Back in the 70s, when we were the distributor for Detroit Diesel in New York and New Jersey, I sent him 100 repair orders every month. This was in the 70s. And he used to call on the phone. He says, Jay Penske, are you happy with your service? So I guess I got that DNA from my dad back at that time. And we need to connect with customers. And I think it's many, many different ways.
Did you learn a lot from your dad?
I learned, he made me work hard. He said, he was my partner. And he said, if you want something, you go out and earn half, I'll give you the other half. And I think that's how we worked. Wow. And when I became a dealer, I've told this story many times. I had a chance to become a Chevy dealer in West Philadelphia back in '65, and I needed $50,000 to imagine in those days, Mike, $50,000 you could get into a dealership. Things have sure changed.
Unbelievable.
Today.
Yeah,
But,
they've changed.
I remember he was retired, and we drove to Pittsburgh because he had money in his savings account. He got a check for $50,000. He gave it to me, and we walked out of the bank. And he said to me, he said, son, he said, if you lose this, I'll go back to work. So wow. That was a good enough for me to say, I'm never going to look back and not let you down. So he was a key part of my upbringing, and my mother, and you think about your family, and I've tried to be the same to my kids.
So any other people who have taught you things through the years who really stand out?
Well, from a business perspective, I'd say Jack Welch at GE. I spent 20 years on the GE board.
During a very exciting time.
And, this is a fabulous company. And, Jack was the one that taught me, obviously what metrics were about. He talked about teamwork. When you go to those board meetings and see the management team, you think GE's this big company, Rockefeller Center, their name up on the top in New York City. But the quality of the key executives and the camaraderie of that group, they weren't competitive, they were working as one team. And Jack created that. Yet he created tension to a certain point, and I think at the end of the day, he took that bottom 10 out. And there's one thing that I learned from Jack. I think at the end of the day, when you think about pressure is a privilege. Remember that one. That's a good one for today.
That's a really
pressure is a privilege. So I learned that from Jack.
So 300 of our leaders in this room really making happen from across the world, by the way. You had asked that earlier. We operate in 25 countries, bigger in the UK and Australia and some of the other areas. What advice would you give the people in this room as we're tackling what we think right now is just an unbelievable time in our industry?
Well, I think it's connection, with the customer. Be sure the people that you have working for you are committed, and the weaker ones, you got to move out. There's no question about that. But I think that you've got to go in and you've got to understand your customer's business and not just talk about your products, but maybe talk about things that you might have seen have nothing to do, with Cox Automotive. But you become, someone they want to talk to. They rely on you for information and support them when they have problems too. And I think those are the things. It's some of the soft skills that start to build these relationships that last forever, because your technology, you're either going to win or lose with your technology. And I think today, when I look at the suite of products that you have, you've got a real competitive advantage.
So one of the things we talk about here is that technology clearly is an advantage. I mean, our merger with DealerTrack, we obviously believe in that very strongly, that Jim Kennedy and the Cox family invested $4.5 billion to bring these two companies together. Yet I still talk about the fact that, and I put this slide up, I was telling the folks yesterday when I go in and talk to dealer groups, that there's technology, humanity versus technology. I mean, technology drives it all, but the people are the ones who have to drive it. It's still about the people.
That's correct.
I mean, that's where we're going forward. So I have to ask you this one, and this is one that we talk about a lot when we talk about you. So a lot of people in our company will just, give me the nickname the Energizer Bunny, because I really do move around a lot.
That's good.
It is good. But I'm nowhere near you. I see you every weekend at the racetrack. We know what you're doing every week. How do you do this? How do you go 24/7 and don't stop?
I got 4 or 5 pilots. Those guys are always they're always at the airport ready to go. That's one thing. No. Look, I've been fortunate to have good health, and I love my job, and to me, the weekends when you do see me at the track, that's my fishing trip and golf game. But I think with technology, with your access to information. You can be very professional, and I think you make a difference. But I feel, for me, getting out, I'm going to go to Italy and Germany here in the next couple of days for 2 days, but just getting out there.
For 2 days?
Yeah, for 2 days. and have the opportunity to connect and build the brand. Because we would do anything for our people, and I mean that. And to me, their families, and with a company, we have 50-some thousand people now. So, things happen every day, and we have to be sensitive to our folks. And that's one of the things that I've got to be sure that I am. Because if I get calloused and don't deal at the level and put arms around people, the company will turn into a much different organization. And it's my goal to maintain the brand value we have.
That's remarkable. What do you do for fun? I know racing's fun to you. I know work's fun to you. What else do you do for fun outside of work?
Well, I play a little bit of golf, but not very well. I think I'm going to put my golf clubs up. I'm a skier, if you can believe that.
You told me you took your grandson, last time we were together, you said you took your grandson for a few days skiing.
Yeah, and I had my grandkids on the jet skis the other day, so now they want to ride jet skis. That's it. At 9 years old, my daughter, she had a heart attack. But I said, just follow me, and then they wanted to go by themselves. So, no, I have, I guess as I said, my fishing trip and golf game is on the weekends.
That's great. So I have to tell you that a few of us in the room here were privileged to be at the Team Penske 50-year anniversary. And there were so many amazing things that happened that night. We could talk about it for hours. 80 different drivers winning races, 42 of them being there. My wife was really impressed because she got to meet Elio Castroveres. She thought that was really cool.
She'll go with him, Dancing with the Stars.
There you go.
He's still playing that card with us because he won Dancing with the Stars. I said, put that one away, win another race, will you? Come on.
It was an amazing night, and there were so many amazing things. Jay Leno was there, did a private performance. But the thing that stuck out to me the most was a young guy by the name of Brad Keselowski, who we know Brad. Of course, we love Brad.
Yeah, right.
We met Brad. We love Brad. Brad's one of ours. And by the way, it's interesting. Every time I'm with Brad, he says, "I want to come to Atlanta and come see the campus. I want to learn more about business." I mean, he's just a great guy. But he said something that night that I think brought tears to a lot of people's eyes. And had a group of 80-year drivers, and they were just talking about things and said, "What makes Roger different?" And they all said, wonderful things. But they got to Brad, and here's the youngest, and the one with the wild hair, and a little different. And he said, "Roger can scold me, he can teach me, he can, put me over here, he can do this, but everything he does to me, I feel like he loves me when he does it."
Well, I appreciate that.
How do you do that?
I think it's just being open and be transparent with your people. I mean, I think that's. I know that you're there to support them. I think they've got to know how you feel about them and how you feel about the company. And fortunately, in our organization, we try to keep the politics out. In fact, I hope that, and I'll tell you a good story. They said, we're going to have this meeting. I want to go to the pre-meeting. I really don't care what the hell's going to happen at the final answer. You already have it. I want to go to the pre-meeting. I keep telling our people that way. So I get involved in how we make the decisions, not just saying yes at the end. So you got to connect with your folks.
Great. So last thing, as you again look around this room, give us one last piece of advice that we can do, whether it's to be better partners or to really drive the industry. I will tell you, Roger, the folks in this room are determined to help the dealer community and the OEMs make this a better experience and really, really help build the industry. One of the things that we feel is, yes, we've gotten big, but it's not about big. It's about what you do and how you do it and seizing the moment.
Well, as you know, in fact, I looked it up before I came here. Our investment with you folks over the last 2 years is almost $30 million. So, we need you to stay at the top technically. And I would ask every one of you to say, look, here's someone down in my organization who can be a leader in this company. Just start looking at that talent, because that's what's going to make the difference long term for you, is the internal human capital that you have going forward.
Thank you. We are, again, honored to be your partner, and thank you so much for taking the time today to be with us.
Well, thank you, guys.
Mr. Roger, thank you. Thank you so much. Really, really, really appreciate it so much. After you, please be careful going down.